Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. The book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, came out in 2020, followed by Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, followed by Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children in 2023. And on July 17th, 2024, Raised by These Wolves, Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through Foster Care and Court Systems, came out as a bestseller. Feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I have a panel from North Carolina. I'm very happy to have Stetson Webster on. I've got Amy Betts on, Amy Palacios, Kim, and Temple. And I welcome you to Slam the Gavel podcast because we're going to talk about what's really going on in North Carolina. And Catherine, I thought I would start with you. Catherine's not here, no?
Oh, it doesn't look like it.
Oh, shoot. I thought she was here.
I wonder if we should message her.
Here, I'm going to put this on pause. Stop. I'll just pause. Amy Palacios, I've had you on my podcast before, and I'm going to have you start and let me know what really is going on in North Carolina, because there's a lot of similarities to people's cases.
Yes, Maryann, thank you for letting me be on. I am actually like the work with Amy Betts that's also on this line. She's the president of Adelies, and she'll talk more about that. But we have been dealing with family courts now since 2007. Of the corruption of the courts, even Mecklenburg County and Cabarrus County in North Carolina, and she's also been dealing with Wilmington, but we've also court watched in other counties like Iredell County, and other counties like Union and things like that. So our surrounding counties. Our issues are that people are removing children from the safe parent or the protective parent and trying to put children with the abusers. Our other issues are people are having to pay to see their children, $60 an hour to up to like $175 an hour. And then also having to pay astronomical amounts of child support.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have joint custody of my older 4 kids. I have sole custody of my younger 2 kids. And I was made to pay $2,800 a month in child support for my older 4 kids because I made 3 times what my ex-husband made, and his parents are multimillionaires. So this is the whole reason why they keep trying to take the kids, because they have this enormous amount of fund to keep funding the lawyers. And then my younger kids that I get receive no child support, and I'm the sole custody, and he has supervised visitation. I was made to pay $70,000 to the guy that beat me up and went to jail for 6 months and admitted on stand that he threatened to kill me on the stand, choke me out and kill me on the stand. And what the same judge made me pay him $70,000, his lawyer $30,000. Even up to the last recent court, even up in February, they were like, if you don't bring $5,000 more to this lawyer, you're going to jail right now in 30 minutes. And so it's just ridiculous because the judges and the lawyers do whatever they want. I have a lawyer, Jay White, that was over the school board, over child custody, child welfare, over DSS in general, and acting as his own family practice lawyer and the primary criminal lawyer of the county. So wearing all the hats and playing every part of the circus. So we're just dealing with a monopoly behind the scenes, and really the truth is not being presented to the judges, and they don't want to know the truth. They just allow whatever, lies are brought from guardian ad litems. And both of the guardian ad litems I even had in Mecklenburg County and Cabarrus County were signed up it looked like consent orders by me, by the lawyer that I had at the time at both sides. And I'm like, I never even knew I supposedly consented to a guardian ad litem.
Uh-huh.
So it was crazy. I never had DSS take my kids or anything like that, other people are dealing with. But, all these issues of I had to have supervised visitation, even though I had an abusive ex-husband that's in jail. So
Mhm.
like, how is him being like, he's not harming my children? So just constantly acting like the people that are victims of the narcissist or the abusive process are the ones that are being punished, not just financially, but emotionally and, parental alienated. I know, with Amy's situation, she'll tell you more, but she just, made a complaint, did what she was told to do, and now her child has been kept from her for a decade. So it's following through what these authorities that are supposed to be helping you are actually harming you. And the thing is, the narcissist or the person that's actually harming the unit, the family unit, is going to be a calm and collective and acting like, oh, they did nothing wrong, where you might be emotionally responding to the trauma that they're causing to you. And they'll be like, see, you're the problem. You're the problem because you're emotionally responding. But it doesn't even make sense at all. Like, of course, I'm going to be emotionally responding to somebody that threatened to kill me on stand. And I'm terrified when he gets out of jail, and I can't sleep through the night. And then, when I'm responding that way, something's wrong with me. It doesn't, it's just a reverse psychology. I'm a provider, a medical provider. I have multiple buildings of elderly people, and it's just, but they want to act like I'm not, even though I have sole custody of two of my kids, then now two have aged out and gone to college, and they finally dropped down my child support some. But we went to court and they claimed they were going to drop down the child support to $1,400 a month. And when I get the order in the mail, it's $2,000 a month. And they're like, oh, we did the math wrong. So whatever you go to court for, whatever the judge orders on the stand, like I was supposed to, $30,000 of a retirement account was supposed to be paying for this astronomical crazy amount that I was ordered to pay. But because his lawyer will not write for that order, for that quadro to be used, and he's like, they're holding me contempt of court, but he refuses for 2 years to write the part that he has to take that $30,000. The rest of the amount was $800 a month. So anyways, I paid the over $70,000 out. I paid the $2,800 a month for a year and a half. It just dropped down. But like all these astronomical amounts of money, nobody could actually normally afford to do it. They would have failed, been in jail already for not paying. They try to put you in jail for not paying lawyer fees, which is illegal. You can't go to jail for not paying lawyer fees. You
Right.
can't go to jail for not paying medical fees. And then the authorities, they'll call you. I mean, the FBI actually talked to me a couple months ago. And now it's like, what are y'all doing about it? They said that and they called me. I didn't call them. So somebody got my information. And they say that this Jay White is being investigated. They keep saying he's being investigated. He's removed from child support. He's been removed from the school board, but he's still overtaking kids, even though they proved that he's using false paperwork to take kids and false and lies to take kids. So like, when does these authorities, even the FBI, the SBI, all these people, when are they held accountable to actually do something to these lawyers that are, causing these horrible situations for all these families?
No.
Just because it's a profit-making margin for them, the state gets matched dollar for dollar for every kid they take. So they're paying, $800 a foster kid or to these group homes, $800 a kid to those foster homes and the group homes. And then the state also made $800 a kid. We know, one of the families that we're trying to help with Adeli's rights has like 5 little kids. Their parents have the kids. So the state isn't the parents aren't receiving any of the money, but they're still having to pay the state child support. Like they're keeping the kids from them, making them stay with the parents, all over a broken pinky finger of
Right.
one of the children, and he was given a felony charge and put in jail over a broken finger.
And they're being supervised too.
At separate times. They're not even allowed, they're married and they're not even allowed to see and they only get to see the one child. They only get to see the baby. They haven't even seen the other 4 kids in years. So it's crazy.
Yeah. There's a problem with all the counties, Nash, Cabarrus, Mecklenburg, um,
The list goes on.
the list goes on with North
Wake.
Carolina, Lincolnton,
Wake.
Wake.
Yeah, there's 100 counties in North Carolina, and I have talked to, I would say at least half the people from half the counties here. You know, a lot of them have to go to courts that aren't even family courts. Some of them have to go to, you know, a variety of different places, different counties for, you know, their family court, but.
And they don't, like, for my situation, I have a gag order and a gatekeeper order. I'm not even allowed to represent myself in court.
Yeah, they shouldn't even.
So the gag order is with my first ex-husband, so I'm not allowed to talk about his abuse, but I'm talking, when I'm referencing, this is my second ex-husband. So I'm not allowed to talk about what happened to me with him. But the second ex-husband, I don't have that, but I'm made to have a lawyer in court. But yet, you know, it's like they don't give you a court date.
And they string you along, and I think any parent that has been through this knows that they drag these cases out just to.
And you can only have a gatekeeper order if you're incompetent to represent represent yourself. But if I'm competent enough to pay you $2,800 a month in child support, then I'm definitely competent enough to represent myself in court.
And you have
Doesn't make sense.
Full custody of your younger kids too.
Yeah.
You know, also the other counties, Forsyth, Stokes, Davison, Cabarrus, Orange, and Wake and Nash. So, you know, I'm sure everybody is from somewhere of those counties. This is just terrible that this is going on and it's not stopping.
And I have New Hanover too. I don't know if you said that one.
No, New Hanover. Okay. Yeah. So Amy Betts, you have an organization called Aidleys. I know I've had you on my podcast before. You know, tell me more for people listening. What does Aidleys.org?
Yeah, originally I started an LLC and it was called Aidleys Right. And so sometimes, you know, Amy, she's the vice president. Sometimes she'll still call it Aidleys Right. But since then I've started the nonprofit, which was Aidleys.co, which I use the website Aidleys.org, but it's my kids' names put together. And so today what I did was, for your show, I put together like a couple little paragraphs to kind of talk about, I guess, that component, but also what Aidleys is doing. If you want, I can kind of read that through.
Sure.
Okay. Our children are aging out of the family court industry, and there's been zero recourse for the families. Years of destruction to people's lives, as well as murders and suicides at the hand of the industry. It must be abolished. I started as a litigant in 2007, and I've spoken out, worked alongside, as well as sit beside parents in similar court situations that many have been dealing with these cases for 40 and 50 years, just years of court crimes. And unless you've ever been in one of these courts, you wouldn't believe it. Just the legal terminology is too much for most people to bear. So a little about me, I have 3 kids and 2 family court cases, as well as being involved in several lawsuits in different jurisdictions. All the claims and pleas have been dismissed and ignored, but When you file complaints in North Carolina, these come with retaliation. My youngest, she's 14, and this June marked 10 years of our court-ordered no contact because of that retaliation and the other crimes at the hands of the judges that have been involved, which I have Melinda Crouch in New Hanover, Gary Henderson in Mecklenburg, and I had Mark Costine in Ohio. And he was the one I talked a little bit about before, whose brother Eric was the attorney that assisted my exes in having me arrested for felony kidnapping when the brother Mark was the judge that created the warrant for my arrest. And then the attorneys, Leanne Quattrucci, she was the one responsible for the order of no contact. And then she was able to get a guardian ad litem, Christine Farrell, social worker, Renee Ennis, and some others appointed by that Judge Melinda Crouch in this case. But also CPS was later involved, which I was not notified about because my little girl's dad was arrested and convicted of abuse to her. And this was a year after they had given him sole custody of her. Not to mention at the time, my ex-husband was creating his own unlawful orders of ex parte to keep my older two kids and I apart. So the ex partes are something that the courts are famous for using to create these unlawful orders. Now, my oldest two have since aged out. They were 3 and 4 when we got involved, but now they're 20 and 18. My oldest is in her second year of college. So we've just been the last 2 years getting to know each other. And my son ran away to live with me 2 years ago. I built him a little house. He lives right beside me in his little house. But the worst part right now is their little sister, which is my youngest daughter. We all still remain separated from her. Now, the nonprofit I founded, I continue actively advocating. I do a variety of different things, I guess, in that realm. And some of that's listed on the website. And it's AIDILEYS. And that's Aiden, Madison, and Bretley's names, parts of them put together. So what we're doing right now with AIDILEYS is we're currently distributing surveys, and we're working to get these into the family court system. And I've been kind of doing some other like partnership meetings and things, trying to get some agency data here in North Carolina. And what I found is that the data in the 100 counties, it's very sparse. There's about 20 counties that even really have data, and even that data you have to search for. Now, since most of these agencies are funded with federal and state funds, we as citizens are supposed to have access to this information, but they don't provide it because basically either one, they're not collecting it, or two, it's because they have too much to hide. So now something we did, some parents on Tuesday, we spoke with Mike Ross here in North Carolina. He is running for governor of North Carolina. He's the third party candidate, and you can find him on Twitter at Fire the Uniparty, which I love. But also he recently put a post out and he said, how is transferring money from a child's parents to lawyers and bureaucrats in the best interests of the child? And I think that's probably what all of us are having to deal with, this concept that the courts use called the best interests of the child. And really that's just judges using their personal opinions to judge us all.
Yeah. Very poorly.
Now the parents, we let the governor candidate Ross know of some of these issues, and we let him know that there is a need for these surveys in the courts and that they should be utilized by a true outside oversight commission for the courts. Now, right now, there is different, I guess, strategies. I don't even know. The states use different things for oversight, but none of it's true oversight, because the majority of these have board members that are mostly either bar members or some legislator in some way. So there's all these issues. So judges, I think in 25 years in North Carolina, 5 have only 5 judges have been publicly reprimanded.
Oh.
And when you look it up, some of the research has been done, and they had said that because they like to keep their records confidential. And so, again, just another way for them to hide their crimes. So, right, I mean, today, I mean, I'm speaking out to, of course, against the corruption, but I think, third-party candidates are something that, I mean, depending, there's so many issues, and some people may, want to say it's Democrat, Republican, but regardless, I mean, it's everywhere. It's across party lines. It's it's not just black people, white people, it's brown, it's everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the main thing is that the courts need audited and
Mm-hmm.
cases need real investigations, because right now what's not happening is true oversight, and there definitely has not been any accountability.
Mm-mm.
No parents in the cases that I've, the families I've talked to and the cases that I've been involved with, no parent has got recourse, especially back since 1983. A group of moms that have been doing this that long here in North Carolina.
Do you also, it seems like these judges refuse to look at evidence.
Yeah, even in my youngest daughter's case, they actually sent evidence back in an envelope to me and said that because they said if I didn't come get it, they were going to shred it. And since I didn't live in New Hanover County and I work hours away, I ended up getting it in the mail. And so I guess they didn't necessarily shred it. And, I never really went through it extensively to even see what all they put back in that envelope. But yeah, I mean, it's a racket, and the judges choose what they consider evidence, and every judge does something different.
Yeah, this is something has got to change for the sake of children and their futures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stetson, what have you to say? What do you think of all of this?
This is very, very enlightening to me. I used to be of the opinion that the court system is biased against men, and women get the better deal. And I've sat in court before and looked at a mother, trying to get custody of her kid, and I'm just quietly there, fist pumping for the guy,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel terrible. I feel horrible. I don't know as many men as I have now come to know as many women that are going through this.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the men's situation, it is not as severe as I'm seeing this to be. I'm one of those people who I will modify and update my opinion as I get more information.
Mm-hmm.
And this is shocking to me. It's enlightening to me. And I want to see how I can help. So a colleague and I we just put together a website. It's leveragethelaw.com. And we have been going through this situation in Wake County. And on our website, you will see that we have just recently filed a civil rights lawsuit against 4 judges. 2 of them are our primary judges, and then the other 2 are what I call the overflow judges. So we just get pushed to them if the calendar is crowded on that day.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so both of us have been incarcerated. We've been subjected to that. So one thing that is very encouraging, and I want to impress upon everyone else here on the call today, is that what I have found is that they can't do any of this. This is already against the law.
Mm-hmm.
So don't feel like the law is against us. It is a matter of, bringing change through the existing procedures and calling out the procedural missteps along the way. I had to learn that. I wasn't as keen to it as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all due process violations. When it comes to, I'm surprised. I've heard of one other person before today. Now I'm finding out that they're using these ex parte orders. I have also seen where the person who's had the ex parte order written against them, they are not on the civil cover sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not even a part of the case that they are receiving these court orders for. So I have seen where, I mean, just think about it. As big and as powerful and as almighty as these people are, they have to break the law to do this. They commit violations. And so what I would impress upon us is to take careful note of those due process violations. My colleague and I have put together a process that actually filters through a lot of this and actually can help you figure out exactly where the due process violation is and how it manifested.
Mm-hmm.
So we if you take a look at our lawsuit, I mean, it looks like it's sticking.
Mm-hmm.
We had filed an earlier one. My colleague had filed his first, and then the second one is with us jointly. And the first one got dismissed, and it was a very, very educational dismissal. And we made those corrections, and we proceeded, and we're now going through the process. But just be encouraged. Just keep thinking, keep realizing that, these are all due process violations. They can't do what they're doing. So it's just a matter of figuring out how you're going to get around it. And you can reach out to us. Go to leveragethelaw.com, and we'd be more than happy to, now we're not lawyers. We can't offer legal advice. So none of any conversation that you would have with us would be or should be construed in any way as legal advice.
Mm-hmm.
But just to talk through some of our experiences and offer some support. When we first started this site, we actually thought that we're going to have a lot of men reaching out to us. There's been no man reached out to us yet, and it's just heartbreaking. Even for my own kids, I think that kids definitely have to have a relationship with their mother, regardless of what has happened. And to hear that a mother has, I mean, worthy mothers who just don't even get to see their kids, and then they have to pay these ransoms, and then, you have this maternal draw to your kids. So how would you not pay the ransom? So that's just heartbreaking, and I'm sorry to hear that. But reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to see if we can offer some, just some conversation and guidance.
Well, I appreciate that. That's really very good to hear that you've got this leveragethelaw.com that people can turn to. It's just everyone goes into this thinking that, oh, it's going to be fair. And it's just not at all, farthest from the truth.
Yeah.
I think all of us here have been put in jail, psych evaluations, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was just for a weekend for not doing a psych evaluation. When I did the psych, I did 2 different psych evaluations, but they claimed it wasn't the right psych evaluation. So they wanted me to use the medical provider that they chose because they wanted it to have a negative outcome. And because I didn't use their medical provider, it didn't have a negative outcome. So they wanted to put me in jail for not doing the right psych evaluation.
So another thing I want to add is try not to get yourself too caught up in the what, because that is the part that really, really drains us, right? And that is a sleight of hand that they use, is they get us all caught up in the what. And even in your case, Amy, where you say that, they try to make you look like you're the crazy one. And in fact, you're just being stepped on, right? And when you you just tilt your head differently and look at the how, look at the how they're doing it. And that is where you're going to be enlightened and you'll see exactly what's going on. And you will become very, very dangerous at that point when you can start to see how they're actually doing it, because that is where you're going to start to gain your strength.
I think that what he's talking about, the strength part's key for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because again, there's this sense of helplessness, there's a sense of hopelessness because this stuff is going on right before your eyes. And this you feel like there's absolutely nothing you can do about it because they're getting away with it. But when you start looking at the how, you realize, gosh, they're blatantly doing this. And it actually, it's an empowering revelation. It was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me a lot to start documenting. And that's when you can start doing all of your research. And so just keep an eye on that. Start thinking about the 14th Amendment and what that does for you and what it entitles you to. And it can change a lot. And once that change occurs in the way you look at it, it actually has a way of actually working its way through your system, your mental psyche, and you start thinking of it differently. And that's where you start to gain your strength, because otherwise it's just beating you down the whole time.
Mm.
I mean, if I didn't have my faith, I wouldn't have the strength to get through with everything that I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is anything done in darkness is going to come to light.
Mm.
You know, no weapon formed against us will prosper. And, you know, everything meant to harm us is going to be used for the good, because nothing can be in the long term gotten away with. It might seem right now that they're getting away with it, but God has the final rule in everything. And there's seasons where people have evil things going on, but it can be overturned in an instant. Just like, you know, so people have these changes in their health in an instant, or changes in their things that are going on with them. Like this can be overturned in an instant by just making people aware, just like you said, that you didn't even realize that this was happening to women. No, it's been happening to women for 2 decades.
Definitely more than that.
And more than that, but like probably the worst about the jailing and the making them pay child support and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that they were making women pay child support over 20 years ago. But because there were less women working, you know, but the problem is there's a lot of these deadbeat dads that don't have any financial responsibility at all. I mean, I just found out another girl that's paying like $7,000 a month in child support to her ex-husband that also beat her up. So it's just, and she has primary custody of the kids. I think they go with him every other weekend. I mean, granted, she makes a whole lot of money, but it's kind of like a Halle Berry story or a Britney Spears story, where Halle Berry was paying like $16,000 or $18,000 a month in child support, and she had the kids more. Mm-hmm. So it's just men are using this to a way to control and manipulate. They don't want the kids in our situations. They really don't want kids. They just want control of you. They just want to be belittled and to be not financially prosperous and, you know, in jail or, you know, whatever, like mentally insane from not being with their kids, because, you know, they are in our situations, like these men could go for really extensive points of time without their children and, you know, out partying and sleeping around and doing all these other things. But it was like all of a sudden when we move on with our life that they want the children. So it's just a way of control and manipulation. And, you know, it's just, my children are all seeing the truth. Like that's the thing, is like, especially my older kids, like they're just seeing, like, because they didn't even understand that $2,800 a month was a lot of money, you know, now that they're like going to college and having to pay for a little bit of things here and there or whatever. Like, they're like, I can't believe that mom could like pay out that much money and still, you know, financially provide for us a household and everything else. So it takes a while for kids to get what's going on. And they get that they're not receiving any of that money. Like, he won't even pay for a haircut. He won't buy a new pair of shoes. He won't pay for the things that they're asking for him to pay for. So on top of me paying that amount, they're still coming to me for every single need that they need.
You know, what's supposed to happen is that I am supposed to be very, very frustrated as a man because women get away with all of this in the court. And then you women are supposed to be very, very frustrated with men because men get away with, you know, all of these things in the court. If we go down that path, we get distracted from how they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't, there's one thing I don't think that they have anticipated was that men and women will get together and enlighten each other on this. This is supposed to divide us. It's a typical Marxist strategy. And what we're doing is we're being very, very open-minded. And you know, like for myself, revising opinions with additional new information. And but yeah, just being aware and make sure you keep in mind that we can fight this with existing processes and procedures because this is not legal.
So did you go through, like, me and Amy, I went through the Superior Court and the Court of Appeals and then that Supreme Court. And I was even told I had a winning order in Supreme Court, giving my kids back, stopping all these orders, everything, like that they had created this winning order. And then Jay White, this crooked lawyer, and his team went in and said she has a gag order and she's not even allowed to file for Supreme Court. Well, they gave me the gag order way after the Supreme Court was even filed for, because it was open for over a year. So they should have still been able to give me the order because the original filing of the Supreme Court was before they gave me this gag order in retaliation. So like every time I think I'm about to have a victory, somehow it's just swept out from underneath my feet. So I don't know how you can remove a winning Supreme Court order just by what some other lawyer says, but that's what happened to me in my case. I had a winning order last summer.
So you nailed it though, and you said you don't know how you can have a winning order and it gets swept out from under you. You know, you just by your question, you already know that it's wrong. Maybe you might not have the legalese, but it just doesn't make sense. And your instinct is correct. And again, it comes down to your due process rights. I think you were going to ask if you know, we have been through all of these different courts as well. And the answer is yes. We've gone all the way through the appellate court, and my colleague Mike has been through the North Carolina Supreme Court, and all of it is the same. So that's why we went to a federal civil rights lawsuit. And this federal civil rights lawsuit does not require us to have exhausted all of the state remedies. So you know, just jump ship and just change course. You're not required to do what you're doing.
I mean, I've spent $300,000 in lawyer fees,
Mm-hmm.
and then not on top of the amount of that I just paid out, you know, another $200 and something thousand to these exes that were horrific to me. So
Well,
it's been like $500,000.
what's interesting, just to give you some perspective and just revelation for me, I've been complaining for the longest time about having put out $230,000. And just listening to what you're saying, it's a very, very interesting awakening, you know, and appreciate you sharing that. Just very, very interesting.
I mean, mine has been probably over more time. I started in 2007 and I had 2 sets of kids. So I've had 6 kids total, you know. But me and Amy Betts have similar stories where the second ex were both brought into our life as assistance by the first ex in the court cases. Like, people were being paid to be private investigators, and people were being paid to be doing all this stuff to like get information from you. And then we ended up with that person that was actually being used by our
Wow.
ex-husbands. So that's how we are so close to each other, is because our whole second, relationship was all just fraud upon our first ex-husband putting these two men in our lives. Like, we would have never met them if that hadn't happened. So
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, this is
Horrible.
extortion at its finest.
At its most extreme.
Yeah, definitely. And Temple, your case,
Yes, hello.
Mhm.
So mine hasn't been as long as most people. I've been in this about 3 years now with the custody part of it. But it was absolutely shocking. I was the primary caregiver. I had 3 stepchildren as well. There was a lot of evidence and proof to the wrongdoings that was happening to me. There was a lot of manipulation of the court system by my ex, which I have all evidence of. I filed 2 motions to show cause and contempt that were never heard, which blows my mind.
Mhm.
I did everything above and beyond. I went to a reunification therapy that said my treatment was going to be 6 to 14 weeks. They were $175 per hour every time, and $195 when they changed the counselors for me. I was left with $1.39 at the holidays, so I had no money, and I'm having to borrow money from my parents because we're parents. We're going to do anything that we can to see our children. I was signed gag orders, stipulations, under duress. These people were basically, we call them Rumpelstiltskins. They kept my children from me for roughly 9 to 11 months, somewhere within that. And I never saw, even though they, in their own writing, they said that it was detrimental for me not to see my children. In September, I did not see my children until March, right before court. My children are small. They are, they were 4 and 8 at the time. It was shocking. At that point, my ex had done multiple DVPO orders on me that were not real, claiming all kinds of stuff. At every turn, he would come up with an excuse not to get into court. So, it kept getting pushed back. The judge, she seemed that she was recognizing that reunification therapy had failed us. At that point, she then pushed us into supervised visitation, where I was told I could not hug my children. I could not ask my children questions. I was not allowed to touch my children. Searched by a police officer in front of my children. I was there for a year begging for help. I went from my children blowing me kisses and waving to no longer calling me mom, no longer taking gifts, no longer even wanting to stay in these hot rooms that were miserable. They're tiny rooms. It's 2 small children that want to play, want to do things. I'm constantly being told, even like if I said, tell your dad I said thank you, I would get in trouble for that. You can't talk about that. You can't talk about the past. You can't talk about the future. You can't talk about family members. They erase everything. It is actually reunification therapy and supervised visitation are an absolute nightmare. They are fostering abuse. It is horrific what I experienced. I would constantly beg for help. I would constantly ask for help. At that point, they would tell me that their hands were tied, and they did not have to follow court orders because they were a private facility. My question that I still have to this day is, why are the courts sending us to these facilities that do not have to follow court orders? And they are helping an alienator to further the alienation. The the judge heard that I was not even getting phone calls, never even blinked an eye. My children were being medically neglected. He let my children's teeth all rot out as I sat there for over a year and asked if I could take them to the dentist. Literally, he was to the point where he was about to have a brain infection at 7 years old because his teeth were so rotted out.
Oh.
And the judge asked me what was so important about teeth. It is shocking. None of that was on the findings of fact. They took everything and made me look horrible. He ended up, the man that abandoned us, left us with nothing, did not even call to check on the children, ended up with full permanent custody of my children. As I still, even 2.5 years later, I was then put on a graduated tier, which takes another year, ultimately keeping me away from my small children for 5 holidays because she issued that he get every other holiday. So I will be without my children for 5 holidays in a row. I do have a lot more than some of the other moms right now, which is barely anything. I get 2 4-hour visits a month. And unsupervised at this point, but it took me 2.5 years to even get to that point. Like I said, I stepped up to 3 stepchildren. I was a primary caregiver. I've had a private investigator's report. Everything is proven that my husband was being unfaithful, and yet I have suffered all the consequences of everything. And the private investigator's report was never even entered into my evidence. It's just amazing to me. And which I pay, my family has paid close to $100,000 at this point, because I had no money and they are sick. It has been so, my mom passed away during all this, I think because it was so stressful on her. It's truly, I'm sorry to get emotional, but it is a nightmare, like psychological torture that no one, unless you have been there, can even, when you're grieving basically the death of your living children. How do you wrap your head around that? And then I'm grieving the death of my mother and, my best friend who had passed right before my husband, who walked out as well. So, the fact that we are still standing here, we are coming together and we are fighting for truth and justice. All we want is justice. All we want is what is fair. We want our kids to be healthy. We want our kids to be safe. And, this whole, I feel like I was even ridiculed in my new permanent order because it says the mother has been away from her children for so long, but just wants things to be back to normal. Like I'm crazy for thinking that. And it just blows my mind. I have fought tooth and nail for my children. I will never stop fighting for my children. And they try to shut us up at every turn. I have been told, I know you have a story. It's not time to tell it. It is time to tell it. And we all need to tell it. And we all need to stand together. And we need to be yelling it. We need to be standing in front of the courthouse. We need to get loud because this is gone unnoticed. And, the community is not aware of what is going on. Do you think anybody that knew that this was going on would allow this there are children. It takes a village. And if people really knew what was happening, these courthouses would be closed down. I'm sorry. This is out of control. Out of control.
And the adoption industry is part of it.
Right.
Yes. Yes. But I thank you for letting me share. And letting me be here tonight. I feel privileged. I feel honored. I want to tell everyone who is on here, your strength, your tenacity, I am grateful for. Your experience and your strength and your hope means everything to me because that is how I'm able to hold on and navigate this. And these mothers who have been through this for beyond a decade, it breaks my heart. It blows my mind. And this is inhumane is the word I would use. Inhumane. So let's keep fighting and thank goodness we're coming together. So thank you for letting me share.
Well, most definitely. How about you, Kim?
So I've been going through this for 10 years. I'm a decade in. My case is a little bit different. It's not a mother or a father. Actually, my ex is working with me. It's the paternal grandmother that has my kids.
Oh,
She lied and stole my kids using CPS's help. In 10 years, since I had the kids, she was the only one that's ever made a complaint. I believe she knew someone that worked for the state that made this because I was facing criminal charges with no, and they dismissed my criminal charges. And at the same token, I pressed criminal charges on her for hacking my email account 286 times and distributing attorney-client privileges.
wait.
I filed charges on her, and the DA told me that if I brought up her charges, they will bring up my criminal charges that were expunged off my record.
Oh,
So yeah, my kids I never got to see my son walk. My baby was 13 months old when he got removed. My oldest was 7 and my middle child was 4. My children lived through a lot of trauma. My son now lives with me. He went through emancipation to get out. The day that the grandmother told my daughter that she was going to have custody of her, my daughter tried to commit suicide at 7 years old.
oh,
She jumped from her 2-story window and ran to her neighbor's house, and no one helped her. My kids have lived in and out of mental institutions. My
oh,
daughter's on multiple psychotic medications. All 3 of my kids have tried to take their own lives. They're being ignored by everybody. I actually met Temple through another mutual friend at Time Together, where we go. That place needs to be shut down. That place is horrible. At 3 years old, they told my youngest son he wasn't allowed to hug me. And I'm
oh.
grateful that I'm allowed hugs now, but that's only because my youngest child said, "You're so mean. Why can't I hug my mom?" And that's the only reason why I'm allowed to hug my child now. My children talk about things that are going on. I've opened up several CPS cases
Mhm.
against her with evidence of video footage of child abuse. They've ignored every one of my evidences when I opened up CPS cases. She didn't have to take classes, none of that stuff. And these videos were extreme. There was a video with her grabbing my daughter's hair and pulling her hair, and on the other hand, grabbing her face. She's locked her out in 30-degree weather. My daughter runs away from home every day. She has really bad elopement issues. All this stuff is being ignored. The judge in Wake County is aware of what is going on in my case. This case is now going on over almost 9 months. I have no ruling. It kept getting pushed back because the judge made comments that my trial was too long. It was 14 hours.
Oh,
So she kept pushing my case back. My son did testify, and she told my son that he was a liar. She said that he was being coached, and things like that. So they ignored his evidence. I'm at a wit's end right now because we are forcing the judge's hand in November to give me a ruling. I am scared, and I'm about to cry saying this, but I'm scared my kids are going to come back in a body bag. That's how bad it is. And my ex, I'm very lucky, but he is working with me, and this is his mother. So my grandmother, like Temples, like her mom, passed away in the middle of this. And I asked her one time if my grandmother can see the kids, and she says they don't know her. Absolutely not. My grandmother died at 98 years old. She's Korean, didn't speak English. Like, what is a woman that is a late 90-year-old woman going to do to some small children? And she's kept my whole entire family away from her. My mom has only visited them once, and that was at the reunification center. And no one else in my family has been near those children. My children's father refuses to go there because he said he's tired of being blackmailed by the system. So he won't pay to see his kids. I have been over $200,000 in, and I pay child support, and I pay 90% of my kids' needs and belongings and wants of what they want. And I also pay $180 a month to see my children, and they're 50 minutes. So my case is long and drawn out. I'm hoping to bring justice and light to what's going on for my children and for everyone else that's been on here and for every other mother and father that's going through this. But we all need justice. I'm
Mhm.
tired of waiting. Kids could die like mine if things don't change. Thank you for letting me share my story. Thank you so much. I appreciate every one of your advices, and thank you so much, everybody, for letting me speak. Thank
Well, I'm
you.
glad you spoke out, Kim. Do you want to name your judge or no?
I prefer not to, and only because these judges got you scared, and that's why my last name isn't mentioned.
Mhm.
I am terrified that the judge is going to give me a bad ruling. I live in fear every day. My son, reason why he doesn't want me to mention his name on this is because he's scared of what his grandmother might do to him, even though he lives here with me.
Mm.
And so my children live in fear. I remember my son saying that his grandmother's home, he called it the pit of hell. He's like, I'd rather live in hell than have another day in her home.
Mm.
So, and her own 2 kids, I wish they would have done a background check on her. She's been divorced 4 times. And that says a lot with her. She has 2 kids, my ex-husband and then his sister, and both of them were kicked out at the age of 13 to go live with their fathers after she went to court and tried to fight for full custody, and it backfired on her. And I believe is taking my kids as a way of her trying to relive what she didn't have with her own kids. But they're not her kids, they're mine. And
Right.
she's a grandmother. She needs to stand her role. She's not a mother. She's not a father. That's
Yeah.
my story. Yeah.
Well,
I have
it's
a
what?
similar in-law. I have
Yeah.
a similar in-law.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, she's the monster-in-law for sure.
Hmm.
And she's getting away with everything. Everything.
Do you think she's paying somebody off?
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you why. I had a CPS worker years ago when she called CPS on us. She called so many times until she found one that removed my children.
Mhm.
And they always just closed out our cases. And this CPS worker told us that this last case, when I got my kids removed, it wasn't going to close out because the grandmother knew someone. And my ex was like, someone like who, the mayor? And he says, I'm forbidden to tell you, but your case will not disappear because she knows someone.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking earlier, and I told you my situation. You know,
Mhm.
people know that my ex's wife enjoys her job in the courthouse,
Yeah.
and she had a great time judge shopping and attorney shopping to get exactly what she wanted because she couldn't have kids of her own, so she took mine. There's
Mhm.
something wrong with people like this, but however, these judges come back and say we're the crazy ones.
Mhm. I actually got in trouble for telling a person they hired CPS, had me do a psych eval, and it was someone that they chose. And I told him that he misdiagnosed me because I was going through therapy at that point. And he says, how do you figure that? And exploited me in court. And I was like, how was someone supposed to diagnose you after 5 hours of ever getting to know you?
Mhm.
They
Mm.
cannot diagnose you on a questionnaire that they met you once. So yes, you misdiagnosed me. And I'm the kind of person that if you are dishonest with me, I'm gonna tell you as it is. Another thing about what the grandmother did too is lies. She took the stand and everything that came out of her mouth was a lie. She was caught by the presiding judge and my attorney for lying, and she's not being punished for it. So the liars and the manipulators, they abuse the power. She works for the state. So all that, she's paying someone off. I remember seeing her, my mom pointed it out actually. My mom lives in Wilmington and she pointed it out actually that the CPS worker came in there and they came in together and they used to eat lunch together. My attorney brought that up in court, like how they were eating lunch together. They were too friendly. My mom saw her hand over something to Jen, and the next day they had the same identical earrings on. The CPS worker.
Ah,
So, and
disgusting.
the CPS worker knew she was in trouble. So 6 months after she took my kids, she retired.
Yeah. No one would believe this unless they go through it themselves.
Mhm.
Like, I totally get all of your stories because I've been through it and I've seen a lot of and heard other people's stories through this podcast. And these stories have to be told. So it
I
can
didn't
warn others.
actually, I didn't mention my judges' names, but I have Christy Wilhelm and um Judge Nathaniel Knutz in Cabarrus County, and both of them are a part of the same Republican Party. And this, opposing lawyer, Jay White, Christy Wilhelm, the lead judge, actually used to work in his firm and still goes against him with gives him favors, and used to work in his firm. And so, talking about ex parte orders, I had 7 in 15 years of ex parte kidnappings. So, yeah, there's definitely. Oh, I told you Christy Wilhelm worked in his firm and actually even babysat his children. Like he coached her up and helped her become a lawyer. And then now she's the lead judge, and everything under her is just corrupt. She's helping kidnap children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why the courts, they need to be audited, like truly audited, and we need true oversight, because I think the saying is corruption absolutely corrupts, something like that.
Right.
But I mean, it's so true, because they have absolutely no oversight, so they can do whatever they want, appoint whoever they want, and get whatever result they want, because it's all made up.
And Judge Nathaniel Knutz was the judge on my domestic violence trial, where my ex-husband threatened to kill me on the stand in front of him, and he gave him a restraining order, but yet also was the same judge that gave me an order to pay him $70,000 and pay his lawyer fees of $30,000. Why I should have to pay the person that beat me up and threatens to kill me, and not in front of him on the
Right.
stand, makes no sense.
See, that judge needs a psychological eval.
Yeah.
Why aren't they doing this with these judges? Psych evals every 2 years and random drug screens.
Yeah. I mean, that would be something. But even then, who's to say that you get valid results, or they wouldn't hide them? Or
True.
What about cameras in the courtroom? I mean,
Yeah.
why are there no cameras in the courtroom? Because what I have seen in those courtrooms is a complete disregard for anyone. I mean, my father paid to, we paid for a motion for him to testify via WebEx, and she did not even turn WebEx on.
Mm.
So, it feels what is really going on here?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
I have
go ahead.
one more thing I want to add to. I asked for a reassignment. I did get the previous corrupted judge. We gave her the name, the Terminator, but I asked for a reassignment and got approved within 6 hours of a reassignment. And less than a year later, she was asked to step down from family court. So that's what I did, but it didn't do anything, because here I am still, going on. This happened in 2014, and here it is, 2024.
Oh.
Yep. And there it is. No one gets their kids back. None of us have had recourse up to this point. Like these little victories for us, but they still haven't ultimately made the real impact that we need to happen. Our kids need us as much as we need to parent them, and that's what needs to happen. Us back in their lives.
At this juncture, my ex is still not even following the court order. I do not know anything about their medical records, their school. I know nothing about my children. And why is nobody doing anything? Why does nobody care? And this is not just me. This is all of these moms and dads that are here saying, why does nobody care? Why does it feel like nobody cares? Everybody's hands are tied. The judge has written my order wrong twice, but yet I have to pay to get it fixed.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know this is why we all came together, and we have to thank Amanda Story for getting us all together today.
Absolutely.
Without her, we wouldn't be all sharing these stories that people need to hear. Because, as I said before, what happened to all of you and myself can happen to anyone at any time.
Yeah, people in all walks of life, that's for sure.
Right. Right.
I mean, we've had the ACLU show up to our protests. We've had, all this headway. Our county doesn't like it for us to protest in Raleigh with their faces on signs. If you're protesting, make sure you put these judges' faces on the signs because they really hate that. Or lawyers, they want, because their name, it's not gonna, if you see their face with the name, it's really more identifying. But they don't want to be heard. They don't want to be, and they just say, oh, we're just making up the truth, but that everything done in darkness is going to come to light. And I just think that it's soon. Like, there's obviously people investigating, the FBI, the SBI, they're going to these counties, they are collecting the evidence. And we just have to keep finding more people that will speak out. The fear of being silenced is what's kept this from justice. Justice hasn't happened because of so many people silenced because of fear. So we have to just break off this fear and open up just gates of just the silence have to end. If we all want justice as a unity, we have to be vocal about every single little detail that's happened. And I understand that in a way, it doesn't matter about all the details of happenings of this person did this person did this, but we need to start more detail about the processes. Like, so like this happened to us, but they never even gave us an order. Like, we just were arrested for no reason. Like, whatever happened to us, like, how can they just threaten? I mean, we've had people be threatened and put in jail for 4 days for calling somebody a liar. You're not allowed to testify that person's lying. I've been threatened that I'll go to jail for testifying that the lawyer is lying. So they want to make whatever this person is saying is finding of fact, but they can't make it finding of fact if you're objecting to it and saying it's not. But then if you say it's not and you're objecting to it, then you're going to go to jail. So that needs to be on record. So just keep pushing forward, keep objecting to it, keep saying that's not the truth, or it counts as the truth.
I know Temple and I have worked on a few things. We did Jesse's Law last year. I got the chance to meet a wonderful lady that had a similar story with Jesse's Law. Her name was Misty. Her granddaughter got murdered by her father last year. And I think judges should pay the penalty. The father never got to see and never was around his kid. The judge ordered that he have visitation. I think it was, what was it, Temple? 10 hours after the judge made that determination that the baby go see the dad or whatever, the child was murdered, blunt force trauma. And judges need to pay if something happens to a child if they decide that, because, and the guy, from what my understanding, I just spoke to the grandmother not too long ago. He's been acquitted, but he's in the military. He's in the Marines. So he has not been arrested because he's a man in uniform. So they're protecting their own.
Well, perpetrators walk, and I know a lot of parents, a lot of moms whose kids have been murdered by the dads. The dads, aren't held accountable. And not even just, dads that are not even military, just and you can say too, abusers, like I think Temple was talking about, she had, restraining orders and different things. And it's just like a slap in our face because we have, if you're dealing with a narcissist or an abuser, there's nowhere that you can truly go and get help. Even places like legal aid, they're always like, well, we're out of money, or, and you have to go in your county, and it's just the ongoing racket that, with these perpetrators and the system refusing to do anything about them.
I think what they rely on is our inability to articulate exactly the how, and they really get by with that. And moreover, it is about our inability to actually write out what's happening, because as human beings, it's such an abomination what's happening to us. We get caught up in the what, because that's the part that really, really hurts, and we miss the how they've done it. So yeah, focusing on the how is definitely, it's lethal. It's a lethal weapon, because then they can't hide. But they prey on that, on our inability to articulate what's happening, and then it makes us look like we're incoherent.
Well, and I think that the biggest weapon, the biggest tool that they've used is they've taken our children.
Yes.
They have taken our children for years, not just, you're separated from your child. I was never separated from my child. And then I go years separated from my children. I mean, it is psychological torture. Like I said, I will use the word inhumane. That is how I feel about it. And, that is their, so, we've walked through fear on that, but they try to silence us at every turn. And, so yeah, we're going to have to really, we've lost the most precious thing to us at this point. And at this point, yeah, they'll put us in jail, take our homes, whatever it is, but we can never get those years back. And people are still going through it like over a decade. So we have to come together. We have to walk through fear. Maybe, these people have put stipulations on me, but maybe they need to take me to court so I can say, hey, you're a bully. Look at what you've done. You've taken my children. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't, but that's why we need to stand
issue, so for my
together.
older kids, this last time I got remarried and my ex-husband just kidnapped my older kids again. After in one county, I was told that he could never call DSS again, and he never could do an ex parte order again. Like, that was done in Mecklenburg County. He did it over again in Cabarrus County. Well, I went to go get because now I only have my kids like every other weekend during the school year. It is a week on and week off during the year, during the summer. My middle kids, because my older kids aged out. I never got to go back to court and have a permanent custody hearing. I literally was taken to court, had my like 10 witnesses, and given a gag and a gatekeeper order. They never let me present my evidence that what he said was not true. I had to go through all of that stuff, but it was all because of retaliation, because I was saying that these judges were doing this stuff, and I was calling out the judges. So in retaliation, and I actually, in Mecklenburg County, Gina Kohler was on my side. So my judge was helping me. The only time that my judge didn't help me is in Mecklenburg County is she wasn't reelected, and they put some random other judge and said that Gina Kohler had ordered all this stuff for me to do, like a psych evaluation and a guardian ad litem and all this stuff. She never ordered any of it. And then I was like kept from my children for like the same thing, like 9 to 10 months or something. Well, I had to do all this stuff that this judge never ordered just because the opposing attorney said that it was. So, I mean, it's not always the judge in every single case. It's usually, I would say, the monopoly behind the scenes can be worse than the judge, but ultimately the judge is responsible. Like, for example, I'm over 3 buildings of old people. Like, I'm responsible for everything done in that building. It doesn't matter if it's a CNA, it doesn't matter if it's a nurse, it doesn't matter if it's therapy, it doesn't matter what's going on. I make every single person come to me and tell me what's going on. I literally take call around the clock 24/7 for all my buildings, because I want to know what's going on, because I'm ultimately the one responsible for the care. So I don't, these judges mostly don't care and don't want to know what's going on, and they just sign the paper because they're just overwhelmed that they can't handle it all. Well, then they shouldn't be in that position.
Yeah. And that's what's happening. These judges are creating these orders and signing them. And so they're the one with the ultimate power. So even if you're saying they're helping or whatever, they're still the ultimate one. They're the ones telling the agencies to do things like the Department of Education at the schools. These moms can't see their kids at school, or having social services do things. They're still writing and creating these orders, the judges ultimately, and they have absolutely zero oversight or accountability in North Carolina.
Mm-mm. And go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing. If you look on our website, we do in fact list out the judges. It's right there in the complaint. But I just wanted to go ahead and call it the two main judges on our case anyway while we're on this call.
Sure.
In my case, it is Judge Julie Bell. In my case, and with my colleague, his primary judge is Judge Brian Ratledge. Those are the two main players, and if you go on our website, it's displayed as well. And I just wanted to make sure give them a shout out.
Yeah, a shame out.
Yeah, there you go.
You know.
And one more thing too about North Carolina, some of the DSS offices are being taken over by the state. And I know one county in particular is Nash County, and I think one of the moms that is in one of my groups actually has her case and some stuff in that county too. But there's more than one county that's the state's taking over, and how that looks, I don't know. But there's, you know, the state knows these things are happening.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
When we went to the legislature's office, I believe that Adaleigh's group was there that day, as a matter of fact. So I do not believe in coincidence. I'm so glad to see you guys here. I actually get the email from you guys. I was excited to meet y'all that day. We definitely need to all come together.
Mm-hmm.
And but my point to that statement was, we were tipped off that CPS is being investigated. By who? I don't know. But something is definitely going on. Hopefully, when I heard the other mother say earlier, I guess maybe Amy is her name, the girl that was talking.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see because I've got a crystal holding up my my iPad, so I don't see the names at the bottom. I'm sorry, but talking about that, the SBI, FBI, all of that is getting involved. That's wonderful to hear. I mean, that's excellent to hear. And I would be curious to know who was investigating these people, because we have heard from people within the legislation building that these people are being investigated, but no more information than that. I want to know. And you know, I would love to talk to the SBI, the FBI. We all need to.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe y'all know how to go about that as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, is there anything anyone else would like to add before we part?
Thank you for your time and getting us together today, Maryann.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you all. I appreciate you all for speaking out and pulling together as parents that are watching their kids being handed over to the abuser. You know, it's these judges don't care. And that's why I would like to see family court abolished.
Amen.
Me too.
Well, if anyone would like to contact any of these people on this panel, they can come through me, dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. Okay, don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms. And feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I thank you, everyone. I thank you, Stetson Webster, Amy Betts, Amy Palacios, Kim, and Temple for coming on and saying it all. I appreciate all of you.